This podcast contains discussions of violence and other subject matter that may be triggering or disturbing to some audiences. Listener discretion is strongly advised.
New York was hanging around with me and they seen what I had in Connecticut, Western Mass. When we went out everywhere, they seen the respect, the crew that I had. We would go out and, something would break out and, we would hurt guys really bad, if not near death. Right. And then, so New York guys were around us, and this guy, John, would bring up other New York guys, and we had the club, Club Blue in Hartford. And a lot of times we would break,
you did bad there, and I did provocatively there too. I don't know what you're talking about. Continue.
We broke the place up. So they would go back and go, these kids are crazy. These kids are nuts. And so.
But the money too, though, Anthony, I think part of the reason they were enticed it has to be because of you, because you knew how to make money.
Right. We had a violent crew. I had the biggest crew, the most violent crew, and every one of my guys were millionaires I made up. So when a guy was around me, I had all the violent guys. And you didn't have to be a violent guy to be around me. I had partners that were just good businessmen around me but we knew how to make money. Yeah. I knew how to make money. 100%. So my crew knows how to make money. And then you call on my crew. Why? Because I network with you. You become my friend. I'm making you money. You're making me money, but I'm supplying you. So we're both helping each other out, and we're both getting rich doing it. And I just had the biggest crew and the most violent crew. And so, they wanted loyalty with them. Artie wanted, things were getting really bad with him and Bruno, because Bruno ended up becoming boss in 01. They were getting bad. So they were trying to create some loyal guys that were direct with Artie. So it would have been, like I said, me, Joey, and Reno, but Joey ran away and Reno didn't come with me. Right. So I got the two Greeks, but they're still, you can consider them made. You don't have to have officially be made to, that's just like technicality. Sure, right. No one's going to abuse my two friends, and, and they're Greek.
And they made money though, right? I mean,
I made them millionaires.
Because it's like, all right, so you're Greek, so you can't ever be made. You can't be in the family. Right. So what the fuck is enticing to them? But obviously
but for me though,
took care of them.
They wanted to push me to get made. Because now we could go to other cities and be recognized as, with bosses. And that's how you make money. You network. 100%. You know what I mean? So it could be, a big garbage deal with the Boston guys, or it could be a big strip club deal with the Providence guys and, Connecticut and everything. So, right. And it would be where, because now you are a made guy, you wouldn't have to commit the violence as much, because now they know we're with the biggest crime family in the country, right? The New York City, Genovese family. And they know who I am. All the people that needed to know knew who I was. So if I sent something and said it's coming from me, it settles everything. Because now they know, all right, it's with him and it's on record and blah, blah, blah. So it stops all the commotion and the stupid bickering and beef and that. Because when Bruno got killed in 2003, nobody knew in my area that I was made. Don't forget.
You couldn't tell that.
Right. So Bruno didn't know. Bruno knew, but he kind of knew because he's smart. But no one ever told me. So when I'm going to try to take over.
He knew. You think he knew.
Oh, 100%. He knew, but he didn't know. Based on the official way, he's the boss. How does he not know? He's supposed to be told, you know what I mean?
So is he kind of waiting well, if you're not going to tell him that your maid is fucking already in New York, going to tell him? So he must.
He was in trouble. He was in trouble. Yeah, he was in trouble with the New York guys, but not to get killed trouble. They were just going to demote him. The reason he knew, no, to a soldier.
Okay.
Yeah, boss to a soldier, okay. And and that's all that was going to happen to Bruno. The reason he knew that I was made, that I know, is one fact is there was a little art beef going on with me and this guy, Jakey Nettis, who's a killer, killed lots of guys. And he was around Bruno at the time. And Jakey wanted to see me at his house. And because I kept defying Bruno, why are you hanging out? Bruno said, why are you hanging around with Emilio Fusco? Bruno was another made guy. And so I said, what do you mean? He said, what's wrong with Emilio? And he goes, why do you keep defying me? So Jakey wanted me to come to his house. I go over there with Freddie. And he goes, why do you defy Bruno and this and that? I said, well, defy him as what? Now, I'm made at this time, right?
Right.
But I'm not telling Jakey I'm made. So anyways, I just happened to mention it to Artie. Jakey was in jail with Larry Dentico, who was powerhouse out of New Jersey, powerful boss. He was actually a boss with Artie at the same time. So Larry calls Jakey and says, hey, he goes, you know that kid up there, Anthony, Bingy, they call me. He goes, when you see him, treat him like you would treat me. Now, what's that telling you?
Yeah.
So of course, Jakey's going to go back and tell Bruno, right? And then if so Bruno's going to be like, treat him like he treats you. This guy's a boss, come on, he knew. And then he actually even told me one time when we were talking, he goes, I know you got this. And he pointed to my chest. He pointed at his chest and he went like that. He goes, I know you got this. Like, got my finger pricked.
100%.
Because they prick your finger,
So yeah, we got to talk about
the ceremony.
We jumped around a little bit, but we were talking about Bruno, and I think it's important that we talk about the ceremony because we jumped around to, we're talking about you being made, but everybody wants to know, you watch Sopranos, you watch Goodfellas, you watch everything, you see give our viewers, give our listeners, what is the whole process like of becoming made?
So it's like the ultimate goal, like I said, for the Italian kid, my age and younger, growing up 70s, 80s, 60s, all the way up 2000s and everything. If you were a young, wild kid and violent and you could, back then you had to kill someone. So if you could do that, ultimate goal was you were going to get your butt and get made. And so like, that would be, it was a good thing back then. Today, it's not a good thing. It doesn't exist. There's no reason to get made. There's nothing on the streets that would warrant you to go out that route. The only thing today, I would say it's more of like a business group, guys with a lot of money that are involved. You had some old timers that maybe you can network and start some legitimate businesses and make some money that way.
Right.
But, there's no more killings and there's no more street rackets, or most of them are legal now. So, but back then it was it's like an honor. It was an honor to get that button to get made into the family. And it's like, maybe an athlete getting into the Hall of Fame, or, a young, college player getting recruited into the NFL, picked into the NFL, things like that. It's an honor. It's exciting. And, it's a ceremony. You got called down. I got called down to New York. And you're supposed to be like, you're not supposed to know why you're going there. What's going on out. Right. You're getting called.
So you're just pretending like I am a chef.
Because they used to play games like that back in the day. Like the boss would call you, hey, come and meet me at thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Thank you.
The boss would say, tell one of his soldiers, hey, I want to see you at 3:00 in the morning. You got to get out of bed and go down there. You really don't know why he wants to see you. And it was like, oh, no, I just wanted to ask you a question about it. It was just testing him. Would you really call him 3:00 in the morning if I called you? Because then that life, if they call you when they need you, you got to come, right?
Amen.
So, you get to the restaurant, I get there, and that day there was going to be 4 of us to get made, 3 other guys from New York and me. And they were going to do 2 at a time. We were at this restaurant in the Bronx. They tell you to take off your necklace, watches, rings, beepers back then, phones, leave everything like in this little ashtray right here. And then we're going to go 2 at a time over to this apartment, setup. It was an apartment and building, but it was like a social club setup, with like tables where you could play cards and things like that. And
nothing that you could flaunt, nothing. It's just nothing fancy or anything, right? Just a place you wouldn't even recognize it.
Yeah. I mean, it was like an old, how could I say it? Like if you ever been to a dimly lit setting where, you could see people playing cards and just that social club setting.
I got you.
If they want to, play casino games and so when it was my turn, me and this other guy, 2 of us, we got into the Cadillac, we drove over, got up, walked into the place, and there was other bosses and captains that were there at in this apartment. And then they did the kid with me first, and they would make us, strip down to our boxers and put a bathrobe on. And then when you walked out, it would be a table like this, and there'd be a gun and a knife on it. 2 bosses were sitting at the table, Artie and Pat DeLuca. And you sit down, and, Artie was sitting directly in front of me. Pat was off to his right, and it was closer. So we'll just picture this table. So he was a lot closer. And, I was, it was really, how you could say, a lot of nerves and everything, but it was like very smooth. They told me afterwards, out of the 4 guys, that because a lot of guys are nervous. This is like their big day, to in the big leagues and everything. And, sometimes, they get a little anxiety or whatever. But he already told the guy, he goes, Anthony, he's the best one when we walked in. And, they just tell you, we're part of a secret society. Would you want to join us? Oh, do you know why you're here? They say. I say, no, we're part of a secret society. I don't remember if he said the Genovese family, but would you want to join? I said, yes. He said, if we asked you see the gun and the knife on the table. If we asked you to kill first, would you kill? Which is your trigger finger? They would prick it, draw blood on it. There'd be a saint there. They'd burn a tissue in your cup, and he would say, like, I'm going to light it on fire. Go like this and repeat after me. And so when he lit it, he'd say, if I ever betray this oath I'm about to take and go against the family, I'd forfeit my life. And then they explain a few rules, like there was no drug dealing, no counterfeit money. He said you forfeit your life if you mess with those two. You can't put your hands on another made guy. If we call you and your wife was, giving birth and you had to leave her bedside, would you come? If we called it, would you come? Yes. Would you kill your brother if we ordered you? If we had to kill your own brother, would you kill your own brother? I have a brother. I'm assuming they mean maybe, a guy in that life.
Yeah.
But probably a brother.
Yeah.
Because you say yes, yes, yes. And then it's all done. And they get up and they kiss you on the cheek and they say, hello, friend. Because now you're a friend of ours. And, the other captains came over and kissed, and we went out and had dinner afterwards. And now I was direct with the New York bosses.
Okay.
Artie was the acting boss for those bosses that were there. There was Mario Gigante, there was Larry Dentico, and then the other guys were in prison, the real heavy hitters,
Right.
And so, I got made directly with them. Now I am the most powerful guy outside of New York, because people have got to realize this. Even if Bruno doesn't get in trouble and Bruno stays the boss in Springfield, I'm direct with the bosses.
Direct.
Mm-hmm. I don't take orders from nobody but the bosses in New York.
Yeah.
So if Bruno survived and nothing ever happened to him, then I'm still got more power than him. That's why I'm saying, like, nothing ever had to happen to Bruno. I mean, they were going to demote him for greedy purposes because Artie was greedy and they wanted to steal our money out of our area,
right,
and bring it down there. And that's why he wanted, guys like me around, because I have to be loyal to him. If he gives me an order, I got to follow it.
Right.
Like one time he wanted me to shake my friend down, him, the guy Steve.
Oh yes.
And he wanted
you mentioned him right
10,000 from him. And I said, I'm not asking him for 10,000. He's my friend. And he goes, you got no friends. All your friends are here. And I paid the money myself. I was getting money out of the club anyways. So I paid it there, but I took it 10 times more from what I wasn't giving them. Like, especially when I got made, and actually after that, Bruno got killed. But I ended up, the rackets went way up more for me, because now I don't have to share with Bruno on, say, the sports, the loan check, and the numbers, things like that. And I never gave up New York a penny of it. So they got nothing from me.
You said somewhere you said something like, back in the day, you guys used to send gifts. It would be meats, it would be cheeses, it would be wines, it would be this. $50,000 would go down to New York, but there was never an exchange of money.
Right.
Was it until Bruno, when he would start, like, if there was 50 grand, he'd send 12 down to New York.
Right.
Or something like that.
That's what it was. We never got involved in the extortions, like you asked before, until Bruno became boss. It started off with these two guys,
right,
Jimmy Santinello and Jimmy Fiore. The bosses said, get $500 from each of them. I was there when they said it, and they told Bruno. And they actually said, give it to the kids. It was me and Joey Brazil that were at the meeting.
Yep.
They said, give the 500 each to them, right? And so that started the floodgates, opened up. So now Bruno started shaking down everybody. And we started bringing in like 50,000 a month.
Right.
And we were all involved. Like I said, the kid, Joey Bazil, we had so much law enforcement heat on us from doing all these shakedowns. The guys that were getting shaken now were meeting with the state police, telling them exactly what was going on. So, both Jimmys were talking to the cops, telling them that they're being shaken down, and they mentioned all of our names. That's why I told you, like, how did these guys not get involved? There was me, there was Bruno, there was Felix Strangizi, John Bologna, Joey Bazil.
Yeah.
We were all collecting money for this extortion ring. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
So out of that money, Bruno was sending 12 to 15 a month down to New York. That's when payments started to get made going to New York. They never sent money down there. Like, you know, the story with the van with the goods and everything, that went down there, but not money. Now, Artie becomes acting boss now. Bruno doesn't know this, and he starts saying, whoa, he goes, and he's got this informant coming up, John Bologna, that's telling him,
Bologna.
these guys got an empire within an empire.
Yeah.
These guys are like making millions of dollars a week over there. You got it. You're the boss. Why aren't you, getting a piece of all this? Right. You're the boss. So when Jimmy Santinello, that owns the Mardi Gras and 30 other businesses, is with Anthony DeLavo, John is telling Artie, no, he's with Anthony, but they're with you. So Jimmy, the Golden Goose, is with you, Artie. So they're trying to steal all the guys now, and because now they see their money's coming down there. And this is just from extortion. This is just from extortion. I mean, that's nothing. They were making millions of dollars a week with all of our rackets that we had going on, because there was so many of us and so many associates. Just think of the sports gambling that it's bringing. The loan shark and the 100%. Numbers business, the vending business was bringing $250,000 a week, and that was going on from the 60s, 70s.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So they see all this money coming in, and they're trying to figure out a way now to get Bruno out of the way, because Bruno was too sharp. He had too many connections in New York, and he had a big network of money sources coming in. So if they get Bruno out of the way, where they demote him and put him to a soldier, right? And they were going to put like this guy Felix Strangizi as like the boss, like, right, just to throw heat on him and take it off of me, right? So now they put Felix up to go to Bruno now, and they say, Bruno, all your restaurants, because they had the whole street, all the restaurants on Worthington Street, they had all the restaurants and bars and all the Bruno's rackets. Now Felix can go to him, and Bruno's got to report to him. And then he's going to say, what do you got going on? And he go, New York wants you to pay this. And now they're going to start getting money from Bruno.
Yeah, that's right.
And anything else going on. Same thing with Anthony DeLavo with all that stuff. They're going to start getting all the money.
Right.
And now why should it go to New York?
Right.
It never went to New York. So when Bruno went down to ask that for that first $500 payments from the two Jimmys, well, that opened up the floodgates, and it ended up hurting him, because now once they seen that they could, get this type of money and it was going to New York, now they're like, oh, if we can get this, we can get
100%.
a lot more.
Yeah.
And now they see me with my crew, but they don't forget, like, they never knew, like, I denied the marijuana stuff. So they're like, oh, you're in the marijuana business. I don't sell marijuana. Right. And so I still, like, now I'm dealing with death though, because now I'm a made guy, and I'm made with the powerful bosses in New York. Right. So if I get caught with marijuana,
different story.
I'm dead.
Yeah. Than before.
Yeah. Yeah. Like if they told me, if I got caught with marijuana after I got made and they called me down to New York, I wasn't going. Come kill me on the streets. I'm not going.
You would already know.
You're not getting me to lure me down there and get me with my best friend telling me, oh, they just want to talk to you. We're going to straighten it out. Yeah, right. I'm done. You're not getting me down there. Come kill me on the streets if you have to, but I'm not getting set up in some meeting somewhere.
Just the no drugs. The Mafia's always done that.
Yep. They told me when I got made, you sell drugs, you forfeit your life.
They always,
but some
true to that.
Yeah, no, but New York, they're involved with the drugs and everything. They break all the rules.
It's
but
too lucrative not to.
Right, the Genovese family though was very strict on it, because it was such a.
It brings too much attention. Is that what it was?
They don't know nothing about the marijuana, first of all, but they had so much power and money that they didn't need their bosses. Didn't want they didn't squeeze their soldiers like you see in the movies where you got to kick up. They were all wealthy, so they let their captains and soldiers eat So they all had money and they had all the lucrative businesses to get them involved in stuff, earning money. So you didn't have to sell the drugs. And that's why they don't want to jeopardize what they had now. Because don't forget, we're making, say, we got all of this and we're making millions of dollars off this. To risk that and then risk all this when this is our bread and butter just for some drugs. So they would tell you they were strict when the Genovese family was strict when it came to the drugs.
More so than all the others.
Yeah. The other families messed with. I was dealing drugs with the other families, right? Throughout the 90s and the Lucchese, the Bonanos, the Gambinos. They were all dealing drugs with me.
Is there a pride being part of the Genovese family over others? Is there, when you talk to others, is it like, oh man, I'm part of the Gambino family or the Genovese family? Is there pride with that when you meet with other guys from other families, or?
Yeah. So in the 60s, 70s, 80s, they were pretty much all equal. Like the Gambinos and the Genovese were considered the two most, but they were all powerful families. Then it started just to be the Gambinos and Genovese throughout later on 80s, 90s, and now it's the Genovese. Then the Genovese took it throughout the late 90s, 2000s.
Yeah.
And like I said, now it's not the same anymore. They're not killing. They're not, the money isn't on the same on the streets. So they're all hanging in there and they're mostly doing their legitimate, construction, garbage, concrete, things on that level. But when I say that I'm made with the Genovese family, like when I'm in Boston and I'm sitting with Boston gangsters, like when Bruno used to go down to Boston, he was treated like a king,
like world,
because he's a Genovese mobster. See what I'm saying? So that holds weight. When we go to Florida and he's a made guy who's with the, they call it the West Side. The Genovese is called the West Side of New York. So that holds a lot of weight, and in New York as well, especially as the years went on, it held a lot of weight.
So, okay. I feel like Vlad TV. Okay. Let's talk about the end of Bruno.
So,
it's time to get rid of him. New York has decided.
Well, okay, so let's talk about that. So, Al Bruno, like we touched on it right now. He didn't know I was getting made. They were trying to squeeze him out. And what was going to happen? They were going to demote him. Soldier, right? That's it. Take him down. And he was going to get called down to New York. The week he got killed, the day he got killed, that week he was going to go, they were going to call him. I gave him the message. But see, Bruno had surgery done to his eyes, so he had to stay home for about a week. When you got that surgery done, well, you don't need the glasses anymore. So I told him the message. I said, Bruno, they're going to call you down to New York next week. And he was like, how do you know? That's when he told me you got your butt.
Yeah.
And so, where were you? How did you go down there? Why didn't I get notified? So they were calling him to go down there. And what they were going to tell him was, we're taking you down. They were going to use the excuse, you're drinking too much, and whatever other excuse that they were going to use with him. It's just, we're not comfortable with you and we're going to put Felix up in that position. And that's what they were going to do. And Felix was he's a dummy. He doesn't know how to make any money. And he was just going to be a lightning
rod.
Right.
So everybody that knows that, right?
Right.
And so I'm going to be, and that's what the Genovese family is good at. They hide, insulate their bosses and everything.
Yeah.
And then so Felix is going to have to report secretly to me, but no one's going to know that.
Makes sense.
So Bruno was going to get called down to New York and get told that. Now, in the meantime, as all this shit's going on, and don't forget, there's a lot of shit that happened. We were involved in another murder. We're involved in shootings. I'm involved in other murder conspiracies. All this is going on when...
Meaning brother-in-law?
Yep, my brother-in-law killed him. Yep.
Got it, yeah.
And so all this stuff is... And murder conspiracies, my best friend I grew up with, they told us to kill him prior to Bruno. And then, so what changed? Louis Santos, they told us to kill him. And this was, like I said, there's no friends in that life. We're friends with him, and now we're getting an order.
And then you have the orders to kill him.
So
that wraps up this episode of our mini series with Anthony Arillotta. The next episode will be publishing tomorrow, so make sure you're following the podcast so you don't miss it. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next one.